Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Arrowhead Junction, a collaboration between myself, Strict Toaster, and Fresh Popcorn. And today's episode is sort of a long-awaited one. It is the beginning of the first interchange, or it is the entirety of the first interchange. It's going to be leading us into the main town in Arrowhead Junction. So I know a lot of you guys have been looking forward to this one. Hopefully this satisfies what you're looking for. This is going to be the just the interchange itself and the area surrounding it. Now, I know that seems like a pretty small project for an entire episode, but I'm going to tell you right now, this ended up taking me so much longer than I ever could have imagined it would take me. Not only are we going to make the actual interchange, but I have some plans for the surrounding area of this interchange that I really want to incorporate because, again, this is going to be sort of like the header, like the very first thing you see when you enter this town. So I wanted to make sure that not only was it a nice looking interchange that functioned well, but I wanted to make everything around it really have a nice feel to it that will, I guess, lead us into the building of our main town. So some plans that I will show you in the future, not right now, but they're coming at the end of this episode. I just want to focus right now on the main interchange and sort of the design process. So as you can see, I'm using a much more open layout, I guess. The design is pretty expanded. It's not super condensed. This is pretty common in interchanges like this that are sort of located in big desolate areas. There's plenty of space to work with, so the designers take a much more expanded approach, and it results in interchanges much smoother. It's got much more flow, and it lets the traffic sort of like ease its way in whatever direction it's going. It's not going to be no tight turns or anything. It's pretty expanded and well laid out. So with this one, you can see it starts as a three-way interchange. So it splits in three directions. It goes, or it doesn't split. It splits in two directions, but it's three highways kind of conjoining together, and that is done with this giant kind of roundabout thing that's going to be split twice, but you can see the bases of this kind of coming in now. I'm just starting getting these outer connections in, but then once we get from there, you can see we're entering a second split here, and then the split to the left that I'm working on right now is going to go off to the main town, and that's going to be two different two-lane highways, and then the split to the right is going to go towards our future rail yard. Now, you may have noticed I was actually not using the American roads until now, so sorry about that, but anyway, this looks much better. So the one on the right goes to the future rail yard. I wanted to have that be like a dedicated line. I felt like the rail yard's going to be, well, it's going to be more than just a rail yard. It's going to have pretty much like a full-on factory district over here. So because of that, I really wanted to focus on having a dedicated highway that would move in and out of that area and hopefully alleviate the traffic in that area. Now, again, it is a pretty sizable town compared to the rest of this area, but at the same time, it's not, L.A. or like a giant city. So because of that, we're not going to have like a whole bunch of big 6-lane highways or whatever. And as a result, what I kind of felt like this was going to be, and because this is like the main interchange for the whole area, I sort of imagine like a fractal design. So once we get away from this interchange, it's kind of just like fractaling out. We're going to have that one turnoff that goes to the rail yard. We're going to have a turnoff that goes to the main town that kind of splits up again, becomes a big avenue. And then I'm going to leave the other side up to Fresh Popcorn, so he can go in and make the other interchange on the other side and then start on the main town. And I would imagine that that design would be another larger interchange that also merges into maybe either the same or a different avenue, and then those would kind of blend together, because again, we don't want to have any highways going into the actual city itself. I think we all kind of agreed that while it is a pretty big sizable town, it's not going to be super urban, and we don't want to have highways in the middle of it. It just kind of that feels too urban, I think, to all of us. So that's the purpose of sort of fractaling out and not having a big loop highway going on the other side of the city. So anyway, we're getting into the details now. We actually finished the primary design. I think I cut out quite a bit of what I was doing because I did have some pretty weird looking stuff, but you can see that the big loop here is now grounded. So it is actually connecting with the ground and then going back off the ground again as we wrap around the outside. And you're going to see a lot of work in that little inner area as we continue, as we try to, you know, make it all look nice. But that loop itself, I think, is like kind of the center point of this interchange. So we'll be spending a lot of time there detailing that and making it look nice. But here I'm putting down some little exit signs, just kind of signage for everything, whether it's the downtown area or the industrial park or whatever. Trying to make use of those American road signs here and there. And then the other thing that we want to do, and you can see I'm starting this now, is we're planning on having, again, because this whole area is really just like or this whole region, I should say, actually, is pretty heavily focused on the idea of railway transportation. So whether it's with cargo, whether it's passenger, and with that in mind, we want to have a branch off from the main railway over near the rail yard that comes all the way out with the highway and then comes to this interchange over here and then reconnects with the main town before going out of the main town just past Tricktoaster's water reclamation plant and then back connecting right before Lone. So we're going to have a passenger line that actually moves into the main town. It'll probably be like one of maybe 2 total stops, but the idea is just to let people in this region access train and then get out of the region via train. So I'm going to bring that in here this way. Now, this area is also, funny enough, it's not just a junction of roads, but also a junction of rivers. So I kind of imagine that areas surrounding a river junction would be pretty eroded, because when rivers collide and whenever there's like really just rivers anywhere, even if there's not like a junction of rivers, just like a river in general is going to be pretty dynamic, and it's going to be cutting through different parts of the landscape and create lots of erosion. So in an area like this where the rivers collide like this, there's definitely going to be erosion where the river would have changed paths here and there. So that's what this is all about. Now, this is when the plans of the inner part of this interchange start to come into play. So my idea is we do have Tricktoaster's water reclamation plant, but I feel like for this industrial park, it would make a lot of sense to have it's still a freshwater water. It's not even like a reclamation plant. It's just like a water storage facility, I guess. But it would be non-drinking water, just water for these various factories and things that would be piped in from this area over here. So what I'm doing right now is I saw an opportunity. I was looking at the way these rivers were colliding, and I felt like this area could be a really cool little like water drawing facility. So there's going to be like some cement stuff that allows for the pipes to suck the water in, takes the water up this little line of pipes all the way up to the top, and then it sits in those big tanks, and then from there it gets piped out to the different factories and also the gigantic rail yard over there in that area by Tricktoaster's water reclamation plant. So I'm bringing the pipes up from the dam over here, or soon to be, I guess, semi-dam. It's not like a real dam. It's not generating electricity. There's no actual concrete. But you're going to see I'm going to start shaping the area kind of surrounding these big cement blocks and things to create sort of like a dam. Not really a dam, but the real goal here is to create like a kink in the river that's going to create more pressure and then send the water around where the pipes are. And then the water that kind of backtracks into this little cement thing that we have here will be then sucked in and brought up to our facility up there. So I do want to just mention something real quick. This is like super impressive to me, like how well the game simulates water. I thought it was really, really cool. Like I was just trying to make this little facility over here, and creating that kink really started to raise the water level in this area. And it was just like really interesting to me to see how it affected the rivers. Like just by putting that one kink, the whole river all the way up started to like back up and fill up with water. And then this area where the kink is gets really, really fast flowing water. And then the rest of the river all the way down, which used to be, by the way, almost stagnant. Like it was, the river is not super, the height change in the river is not very significant. and that's like pretty much the entirety of what determines how fast the water flows. So adding this kink and creating all this pressure in this river really brings that water flow up for the rest of the river, which I thought was like really, really cool. And you'll even see I'm going to have some problems here, I think, in a little while with controlling that water, because it's going to start coming over the edges there, and that pressure's going to build up. So really, really cool, actually. Something you don't really think about too much in this game, but it's pretty significant. But anyway, I'm bringing the pipes up this way. I'm trying to use that move it tool to, you know, connect all of them together, make them all look nice in like one big pipe, and then bringing that water off to these other tanks as well across this little dirt road over here. Just kind of like the basics of what's going to soon be a much larger facility over here. You know, piping it all off in this direction. And then I'm kind of imagining that this area right here is going to be like a sort of like a checkpoint for the water, I guess. I don't know if that's like the right word to use, but where we would be bringing the water and then redirecting it to the different tanks and stuff, moving upwards from there. But it's at this point that I wanted to start detailing this like lower facility a little bit, and I'm kind of happy with the fact that we were able to make something look like a I don't know what you would call this. I keep saying like a water drawing facility or something like that, but you know, just an area that sucks all the water up. But I'm happy we could make this without using any actual in-game assets. It was kind of cool to use all these custom assets and just kind of play with it and do it with props entirely. And it really did actually work out in the end. So that was kind of cool. But you can see here, we're already having problems now. I mean, just by making that kink, that water flow got much, much faster. And at the same time, you know, it raised the water up and it started causing problems. So, whoa, actually, it looks like the time lapse kind of like makes the water look super weird here. But anyway, you're going to see here, I'm going to play around with some different designs and maybe consider like, okay, maybe the water can flow this way. But I think in the end, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that land up even further and really create a heavy kink that creates a lot of water pressure, which I think is a really cool feature in the end, because not only does it raise and sort of stagnate some water at the upper level, but it also makes some really fast flowing water that goes right around this interchange over here, which is kind of cool in the end. So you'll see that later on. I don't know if we'll get back to it anytime soon here, but moving on to some surface painter stuff, I'm going to start laying out, and again, I'm like I did last episode, I'm trying to use the surface painter tool as like a rough draft point, so I can get an idea of what I want to do with foliage and with details and all that stuff over here. And this is about the time where I started getting an idea for the inner part of this interchange. I didn't want it to be super empty. I thought that maybe some stuff could be sitting over here near this interchange, especially because we have a turnoff for this, all for like one little tiny thing. So to me, it felt like we needed to have something more than just a simple little water holding facility, I guess. So this is where this idea of like another junkyard came into play. So you can see I'm laying out some different just like stagnant train cars and stuff like here and there. But even more than that, I thought I really wanted to have a go at making a junkyard. I know that Fresh Popcorn made one in the past, and he made more than one, and they look really, really cool. But his are mostly like these big car junkyards, or you know, junkyards that are dedicated to like one or two different types of well, junk, I guess. And as I started playing around with this a little bit and throwing down some different types of just like waste and things, I came across, I don't know. I'm gonna throw out a reference here. I don't know if many of you guys are gonna recognize what I'm talking about here, but if anyone's seen the movie Iron Giant, it was like an animation movie, 2D animation from like the 90s, and in that movie there is this like junkyard owner guy, and they meet him like later in the movie, and he's also like an artist. It's like super weird, and he likes to make art out of his junk. It was kind of cool, actually. And for some reason, when I put down that little house, it kind of reminded me of that from that movie. And I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we designed this as more of like a private junkyard than like a city-owned junkyard? I would imagine some guy just happened to like own this property a super long time ago, before they even started developing this interchange, and he was a little stubborn and didn't want to leave, and so then they just kind of like he left it, you know, all his stuff got surrounded by interchanges and stuff, but he just kind of left it there. He never never gave up the property and kept adding stuff to it. And so as a result, you know, it's like a private junkyard. So it's got all this weird junk. You know, we've got like little plane components. We've got pallets and cars. But we've also got this like weird stuff like statues and like just weird things everywhere. So I tried to really fill it with like some really eccentric and weird stuff everywhere. And kind of like out of the idea that he's like this dude from the Iron Giant. Like he just is like a kind of junk collector at this point. And I mean, he probably still like works like a junkyard. He probably still, you know, operates it like a junkyard, but maybe because it's like a privately owned junkyard, you know, by one single guy rather than like the government or something. It's not so organized. It's not so specialized in one type of junk. It's just kind of like everything. And then that idea kind of grew into this thought of like, well, maybe if this guy is like this and he's living in this like this land that he so stubbornly keeps as a junkyard in between this interchange here, then maybe he's like the kind of guy who's a little more friendly to these homeless people that are just outside the city. Because again, the city's going to be right across this river over here. So this is kind of like right at the city limits. I would imagine that there's like a lot of homeless people trying to take shelter underneath the interchange and whatever. So that's where I got this idea of like, let's have this guy maybe have like a few of his little areas like on the outskirts of his junkyard be sort of like open to homeless camps, and then going back to, and I'm like doing something totally different. I'm just like I'm connecting the power right now, but I would imagine that around these like box cars that I put down earlier, there would be some like homeless people that are train jumping, and I don't know, all that kind of inspired, and honestly, a lot of this even came from Fresh Popcorn's Sam Minato series. I'd just seen him doing these little homeless encampments, and I thought, man, how cool would it be to have the outskirts of this junkyard also be inhabited by a lot of like hitchhikers and homeless people, or people that are just like train jumping. So I tried to incorporate that a little bit down lower, but you can see I'm just really throwing in some weird stuff here, like some weird statues and just weird junk all over the place that maybe wouldn't necessarily be sitting around in your average junkyard, or it would be in a landfill or something. But here, because it's like a privately owned junkyard by, you know, some single dude, it's going to be sitting around in his facility, I guess. But here's we start playing with the fire a little bit. And as you guys know, this is my little PSA, because I've had many problems with this in the past. It is not possible to delete these fire assets without, well, I think it's like a mod that does it, maybe, but for the most part, it's pretty much impossible to delete them once you put them down. So I always say, make a backup save before you use these fire assets. They are a part of the game, so if you have more beautification, you can just go down to the, I believe it's like that light tab, little light bulb tab there, and then it's like one of the first ones. It's called campfire or something, but be very careful with that. I made a save, you might have noticed back there, specifically to prevent any loss of progress from having to like go back and basically just like load a new save if I didn't like how it looked. So anyway, just a little PSA, because that has happened to me back in Rhinestone Island, where I had to go back and redo a lot of stuff because I didn't like how the fire looked, or it was like in a weird spot and I wanted to redo it. So keep that in mind, I guess. But now we're kind of jumping around a bit. I think I was trying to put some more detail in this water facility as well, as I continue to detail the big junkyard over there. But I think that junkyard really started to fit in well. I was pretty happy with its location. I think it'll lend itself well to this area, and it might look a little bit odd right now because we don't have any foliage or anything, but I am planning on, you know, tying it all together with some foliage, with some big decals like I'm doing right now, you know, all that stuff. But I think we're actually going to jump right into the foliage right now, which is awesome. So oh yeah, before I even do that though, I think I wanted to go ahead and make this little bridge over here, but you can see that water flow is really looking good now. And I love the way that little kink in the river just like really kicks up that the flow of water a notch, because I think beforehand pretty much the entire river all the way through was like kind of stagnant, not super exciting. And I don't know, I love like these fast moving rivers like this, and I think it's pretty common in areas like this to have these big rivers be pretty fast flowing. So kind of cool to have that going on over here now, just past the main town. But here I'm trying to tweak this little bridge over here. I want it to look a little more refined, being that it's on this like, or it's right before the pretty fast flowing part of this river. So I'm gonna throw in some concrete, I'm gonna throw in some rocks and stuff kind of surrounding it, which I would imagine would be all reinforcement to prevent erosion and destruction of this bridge over here. So you can see some rocks going in and kind of like stuff around here, but I just wanted to get that last little component in there before we start working on the foliage to get a grasp on what this area would look like before we get the trees going here. But yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, I wanted to paint those little crevices as well before we start on this foliage. But now we're going to start, and as always, I'm starting with the bigger trees first. Now you can see I'm going to go and look at a few of these areas that I did in the past, maybe like real quick there, that are near these rivers. But as we create these rivers, you know, there's not going to be any, you know, nature's not going to pass up opportunity to really grow foliage. You know, these trees are going to grow next to these rivers for sure, pretty much no matter what. So in these areas right alongside the riverside, we're going to have pretty dense foliage, and then pretty much immediately going to cut back to almost entirely barren, like wasteland. So I also tried to bring the foliage up a little bit into these like erosion crevices that I guess used to be branches of river, you know, when it was kind of dynamically moving and you know, going about up these areas over here. So I tried to use a lot of these, like, I don't know what these are called, these like more well, they're certainly have like a lot less leaves on their trees. I don't really know what exactly they're called, but something like gum trees or something. I don't know, red gum tree maybe. I don't remember what it's called, but they look to me like these like more dead trees that would have existed on old riverbeds that are now dried up. So I tried to do that a little bit here as well. And then once we got all those big trees in, now we're gonna see a bit like lighter foliage, some bushes and all that stuff. And I tried to also put some grass along the riverbed over here, because I think that this area that's not nearly as fast flowing would have this, you know, stagnant water that would be good for some more wild grass and stuff. So that's what's going on there. But I am avoiding doing a whole lot of detailing to the areas outside of this river junction, because I'm working with like a lot of denser foliage right now, but we're going to move into the much less dense foliage here in just a minute, and that'll be covering the entirety of this area. So that's when we get into the little bushes, the Joshua trees and stuff, and then move on from there. I'm kind of like taking some inspiration from my previous work over just outside some more flats there. Going to use this shady tree bush to create little clusters of bushes and stuff. And again, we're still in areas that used to be river that have kind of been eroded away. So I'm trying to use the bush to kind of line these areas here, as if they used to have more moisture and stuff, you know, in the past. And just creating some clusters of bushes in areas that I think would definitely have those areas. And then once we get that going, we'll move into the smaller bush types and stuff and kind of spread out from there. But I'm also going to be filling out some of these areas with the surface painter tool, especially the center of this giant interchange here, trying to get some dirt and stuff kind of around here. But continuing with these big bush clusters, and then we're going to move into the wild grass and stuff in the future, and just kind of lining these different past riverbanks and stuff around here. Now we're into the center point of this big interchange here. This is like, turns out to be one of my favorite parts, I think, of this entire build. It's just like the center area here with the kind of upper stepped opposite, or they're like opposing directions, but they're one of them's like at a higher location, the other one. It's kind of cool. I think when this whole thing is finished, it really did turn out pretty awesome. I love that little retaining wall we've got going on, and some natural rock kind of sitting there, and then this like little centerpiece with like some heavier foliage, some cacti and stuff all around the outside and stuff. But I think that this like bush foliage really does bring this whole area together and make it feel like this area that used to be totally like ripped apart by the erosion that these rivers would cause, and then eventually was basically just like totally overhauled and turned into a giant interchange, I guess is what really happened here. But we're pretty much right at the end here for this interchange, so we're going to put in these last little details here, and then I'm going to jump into a live portion where we're going to do some like finishing touches on the interchange, just like some little things that I wanted to show off live that would hopefully give you guys a bit of a look and a glimpse at some of the closer details that we didn't really get to check out in this time lapse where I'm kind of speeding through everything, obviously. And then after that, we will also be jumping into a little bit of the town creation, just like the very bare bones basic roads, because I wanted to, the whole goal of this episode was to not only create the interchange, but like make a nice polished finished entry point and really make it easier on Fresh Popcorn to start the main town. And then from there, I let Strict Toaster obviously is going to use the other part of this interchange to start on the rail yard, and then we can all start working on the main town together. So anyway, let's jump over to the live portion and take a look at the finished result. All right, so here is the finished interchange here. I'm pretty happy with the final result. I just want to jump into a live section, like I said, to do a little bit of talking about everything, show off some of the stuff that we can't really see in the time lapse, and then also I wanted to tackle a few more things here regarding the interchange, and also I did tell Fresh Popcorn that I'd be kind of setting him up for some things in the future here. So I want to get the main avenue coming off of this interchange down. It's probably going to go somewhere, something like this. And then I think what he's planning on doing is an interchange over here on this side that's going to bring a second avenue. It's going to cross this one somewhere over here and sort of just like set up the main town over on this side. So that's what the purpose of all of this is. That's why we're working on this gigantic interchange here. But also, I should mention, I did figure out what that flickering was all about. So hopefully it wasn't too bad on that time lapse there. But I have the time warp mod, and like I said during the time lapse, it's been kind of a mess lately with all the mods and everything. There was an update recently, actually today, when I just started recording, that seems to have broken quite a few of the mods that I use, and one of those was time warp. So I removed time warp, now there's no more flickering, but I also cannot change the time of day. So I'm gonna pause the game for that very reason, so we don't end up accidentally going into the nighttime and making it harder for ourselves. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the stuff so far. So here is that junkyard we were talking about with the cool, you know, little home over here with kind of the weird wacky stuff all placed around. And I don't know, I really love the way this thing turned out. I really wanted to have all these like weird things in this junkyard. And I know Fresh made a few that were sort of like car junkyards or scrap parts junkyards, or he made the boneyard as well, that were very specific. And then this one I just imagined to be like some dude who like lives here, who works this junkyard, that's just like full of just weird stuff, you know, like a big like back of a plane over here, and there's like some school buses and some crates and some supplies, some junked cars and all that stuff. And then also we've got this little area down here, a little homeless camp, which I kind of imagine like maybe this dude that lives over here is pretty friendly to the homeless community, and he allows these train jumpers to maybe stay and you know, camp down here by the train tracks. I don't know, I thought it was a cool little touch. So we got that going on there. Another little encampment out here, which I guess would be like another sort of outer supplies location for this junkyard over here. And then onto what I think is probably one of the coolest things, and it ended up being one of the coolest things. Like I said during the time lapse, it really just kind of came naturally by building this whole thing, you know, building out these rocks and pulling it aside, because, and this is like so amazing. It's like a realization that I had while I was playing and while I was, you know, messing around with creating this area, is as I started pulling this out, the water physics are pretty impressive for this game, all things considered. I mean, it's simulating like a full-size city and all these people and all these agents, so you'd expect the water to be pretty simple, pretty non-exciting. But, you know, as we know from like the dams and everything, it's pretty realistic. And if you start cutting the river off a little bit and you don't give it enough height here, this water level will rise up here and it'll create kind of like a pinch, and there's going to be flowing water and all that cool stuff. But on top of that, you really do have to rise up the land here and lower the land down here if you want to have all the water properly cut over. Because if you probably saw it during the time lapse, you know, the water starts flowing over and it causes all kinds of problems. So anyway, this whole area kind of just like formed naturally while I was trying to just prevent the water from flowing full force into these pipes over here. So this is the result of that. Just like a little, what I imagine to be a facility that sort of blocks the water and allows the pipes to suck water in and then pull that water up to these tanks up here, which then would be I guess distributed to all of our factories and things over on this side. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire interchange. We got our little intersection over here with some nice foliage and everything, and I'm actually really happy with the foliage. Oh, I do want to touch on that a little bit. I'm sure I talked about it in the time lapse, but we definitely want to have pretty high vegetation like right next to the rivers, because again, in areas like this that are just like super dry, you're always going to have vegetation right up against the water. You know, nature's not going to miss the opportunity to grow trees where there's water. So that's what that's all about. We got some little clusters of bushes as we move out from this area, but ultimately it's pretty dry from here on out. It's all just like little clusters of bush and then flatlands and some Joshua trees and some little things here and there. But overall, I think it turned out pretty nice, especially this thing right here. This was like really, really cool, and not even something that I was originally planning on doing. It's actually Strict Toaster that told me that I should try to ground these two roads so it's not so floaty when I was like mid-build on this thing, and it just kind of came out this way. It started to look like an area where rocks would be, and then I put that little wall down and it all kind of worked out. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, why don't we jump in and do the few little things I want to do this interchange here. So let's do that now, and then from there we'll move on to the rest of this little avenue over here and kind of finish off, leaving Fresh with something to work with so he can start on our city over here. All right, so I wanted to start by placing down some lights. So you can see in a minute, I could let it go to nighttime, but the problem with that is, like I said, I don't have time warp, so then we'd be stuck at night, and I don't really want to do that. It looks like, actually, oh, they're not on. It was just that one particular light that was on. But what I want to do is, let me grab the correct light here. I think this is it. Nope, it's somewhere around here. Tram stop, should be further out. Runway, airport. Okay, so this being a large interchange and all, I think it does make some sense to have some larger, big old lights here lighting the entire interchange. So we'll have one there. We could throw in a few out here too. I don't really know how normal that is. I think if we had two, that would make sense. Maybe like one here and then one over here. Yeah, that's nice. That'll just kind of light up these whole areas. In fact, you know what? No, let's do this differently. Let's do one over here on the inner part, like that. That'll light this side, and then maybe like one up here, like right there. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's much better. Like kind of more even spacing going on. We would definitely want to have probably one out here. Trying to like center it with everything. That looks pretty maybe a little bit over to the right, something like that. Looks pretty centered. Okay, that's much better. So we got that one there. Maybe one over here too. I'm not going too crazy with these because I do think you know, we don't, it is kind of in the middle of nowhere, so we don't need like a ton of lights. We just want probably the bare minimum just to sort of evenly light up this interchange and make it safe. So, you know, there's one there. Maybe we have one back over on this side like that, and then probably one more over here somewhere. Maybe, oh, maybe two more if we do like one here and then one more down here like that. That's nice. And that makes me think we should probably have at least one over here, like that. And then my favorite thing to do with these, and this is kind of just becoming a thing that I always do at this point. I don't know if it's even, I don't know. For some reason, it just, to me, it feels right. But I love to go in here, search for traffic barrel, and then use this thing. I don't know, I always see this whenever I drive on highways, and you see these giant lights sort of like right, you know, in the middle of these gigantic interchanges, as they always seem to have barrier cones in front of them so you know where they are. You don't accidentally, you know, drive off and smash into one or something. Not that it really protect you much, but you know, it makes sense, especially down here. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that it would make sense to have cones like this. In fact, I think I'm gonna do that. I've done this a few times at a few different little split offs, but you want to have some bright colored reflector cones in these kinds of areas just to make sure that everybody driving, because you're coming in this like gigantic 5-lane highway that's going to split into 3 and 2, so you definitely want to make sure all the drivers are aware of what's going on and that they can't drive straight into the middle there. So that's what that's for. I'm just going to plop down our little 3 here as well, and this is going to be, I think, a spot for our police officer that'll be sitting down here. But I want to have at least one cop car patrolling in the area. I think it would make sense. But the ones that definitely need the 3 cones are the ones here in the middle of the highway. So we'll plop these down, trying to space them differently every single time to kind of shake it up a little bit. We got those. Definitely need some on this one, and this is kind of looking a bit less even than I wanted it. I don't even know if I can delete these without hang on. Gonna use the old move it trick. Another fantastic use for this mod. Oh, all in all, just super amazing. I love this thing so much. So there you go. Move it has so many applications, by the way. I remember whenever it came out, Strictoaster was like raving about it in our little Skype conversation, and well, so is Fresh. And I never used what is it, the Fine Roads tool, this one here. Yeah, Fine Roads tool. I didn't use that. I didn't use like anything. You guys know I'm probably like I use the least amount of mods of everybody in this whole project, and that's kind of always been the case. I'm just not a huge fan of, especially mods that alter the game. You guys know that. So I just didn't really understand the application of a mod like Move It. I mean, I got that you could move nodes for roads, and I thought that was kind of just about it. But man, it is amazing. It's so useful for so many things. I mean, from like rearranging buildings, like we moved this one over a little bit, that worked out really well. Or like, especially for lining up props like this. Like, I remember building tram stops, and I'd spend literally like 15 to 20 minutes just putting down those little benches to try and make, you know, seating for trams or whatever, and they'd never be oriented right, and I had to keep like placing them and deleting them, placing them. But with these pipes, for example, this would have been a nightmare without Move It. But I just place them all down kind of roughly. They get a little messed up, whatever. They're not like perfectly aligned, and then all you gotta do is just like hop into Move It, hold down Alt, and then boom, just like pop them all in place, and it's super easy. So that mod is so useful. Oh yeah, we missed this one over here. I knew we were missing something. So we missed this one. We might have missed one over here as well. Oh, we got that one. So these are good to go. Nothing over there. We got the 2 here. We got the one in the middle. Got that one, that one, that one, and this one over here. Okay, sweet. So that's that. Now, what I also wanted to do is I wanted to mess around with this area a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and search police. And then we'll grab, I kind of like this one actually. Kind of looks like an older police car. So I imagine this would be a location for an officer maybe sitting over here, just facing out like so, ready to hop on the highway and bust some speeding cars flying into the downtown area over here. And I also got these in here. I love these. These look really good. Little American road signs for there. But I always like to just kind of maybe add some little details surrounding the police officer. So I'm gonna grab some of this like super low to the ground bush here. Let me get this. I'll start with whoop, that's not the right one. I'll start with some cacti around here. And this area feels a little bit barren, so I might plop a few of these down as well. It's not even about filling any barren space with foliage per se, but just to break the monotony, even if it's like some dried up foliage or it's some, you know, decals and whatnot. There's always good stuff to use for that. Here is this the right one? Yeah, this is tall grass cluster, small. So this is what I was looking for. I think it always kind of makes sense to have a little bit of overgrown grass in these centerpieces over here. So I kind of like to think the officer's kind of like hiding behind the grass and the around this pole over here to maybe catch someone off guard around the corner there. But I like to just, especially these like centerpieces, because this is going to be like pretty much the head of the downtown area. So I know that the initial plan was to do a lot more with the downtown this episode, or at least that was in my mind, you know, before building this. But I'm still very happy that we decided to just take some time to work on the interchange, make sure that it's like completely done, because that's been like the name of the game with this whole series. I think me and Fresh and Strict have all kind of agreed that it definitely makes sense to just like kind of finish and detail everything we do and not be ridiculously ambitious with all the stuff we do. Because I know in my own projects I'll go off and grid like huge areas and not finish detailing in it. It kind of makes it easy to do that and then spend a whole bunch of time going back and fixing things. But when you're working with other people, it's not necessarily easy to do that, and it can kind of like pile up quickly, all the work you have to do to detail those areas. So I think in a setting like this, it just makes a lot more sense to do everything as you build it. So detail and then build, and then detail and then build, like that. But there we go. That's pretty much all I wanted to do. I just wanted to get these little airport lights in. I wanted to go ahead and let's just take it to nighttime. We're gonna switch over to the downtown area in a minute anyway. Let's take a look and see what this looks like at night and make sure we're pretty well covered. But I think we're going to be, and the lights on this thing, by the way, are super nice. You'll see in a minute here. I'm a huge fan of them though, so we'll see that. We'll see this whole area. I love the way this whole thing flows as well. I think it was a pretty cool little thing, and it actually like really got this river running again, because this river was like kind of running, but it wasn't crazy, and now it moves much quicker. So the end even has like quite a bit of movement going on, which is awesome. So this little choke point definitely helped with that. But there we go. That is some pretty solid coverage. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted. And you can see, well, you probably can't see. I mean, the LUT is really dark with this particular LUT, I guess. It's just very, very dark at nighttime especially, but I really like it, honestly. I mean, I don't know if it translates super well to YouTube, so hopefully you can see like anything at all. I'm sure this is all just like super bad compression at this point, so my apologies, but I love it personally. I'm definitely going to be doing some cool cinematics and messing around with Arrowhead in the future with this LUT at night. But also, you can see our little campfires around here and everything. Pretty cool as well. Some nice moonlit. Ooh, looks like this thing even lights up. That's kind of cool. So yeah, that's that. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna hop into the future where we're not at night, because I can't even do that by hand anymore. And then we'll go ahead and mess around with this area. All right, we are back. It is now morning here in Arrowhead Junction. You definitely take for granted all those little things that you can do with mods once they break. A little unfortunate that I can't just like, you know, switch the time whenever I want, but not a big deal. So anyway, this is all done, and we're ready to move on to the main part of town over here and just like set Fresh up with something that'll be useful. So let me give you guys a little bit of an idea of what's going on here. So the way that it seems to work with a lot of these areas is the highways and the avenues won't really follow the grid a whole lot. They'll sort of be organic, and they'll kind of move through the area pretty naturally. And then all of the grid itself, which is, you know, a pretty core essential part of a big town, and especially these rural, out in the middle of nowhere towns like this one's going to be, they will most certainly have a pretty established like grid all through the middle of it. So we're going to be using the exact same grid that we used for Lone, that we used for Zamora Flats all the way over here, you know, out even in this direction. Pretty much everywhere we're going to be using this exact same grid, which is, I guess, what would be the north, south, east, and west. And this is super common in rural United States, and even in more urban settings. I mean, it's not always going to follow the north, south, east, and west, but when you get out to those big farmlands, they're very much so just following the exact same grid all the way across the county. So let's get started. First of all, definitely got to turn off our prop anarchy so we don't accidentally run over any of these areas. So we want to pull this thing into an avenue, and this is always kind of tricky, honestly. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is start the avenue like way down here somewhere and then move towards the highway. Perfect. That is pretty far out away from the intersection. That's something I just now realized. Maybe we should have all of this. Oh, you know what? Watch this. This is great. I love this. Boom. Just grab all of you. No big deal. Bam. Move it wherever you want. How cool is that? And I don't think it's actually gonna... Oh, you know what? Is it updating and removing these? Oh, it removes them in... Wow, that is really cool. Okay. Sweet. Good to know. So let's bring this in a bit. I think that the core of this town should probably be a little bit further this way, even if it starts expanding a lot in this direction. So let's bring it over here, bring it a bit closer to the river over here, which has a really big bank over here. So I think we're going to have this kind of wind over here and then have the highway jump the river like this. I'm imagining Fresh will do something over here, maybe like some outer city stuff. I don't know what's going to go there, but that'll come in the future. Delete the top piece. Boom, good to go. Already looking like an avenue, which is great. Let's get the avenue out here again. Maybe somewhere like here. Oops, I'm going to pause it so we don't get into the nighttime. Then apparently if you hold Alt... Oh, that does not work. I'm not even sure how this works, honestly. Oh, there we go. You have to have the snap on. If you use Alt with the snap, you can make precision engineering do some interesting things that I have never played with because I do not have this mod in Rhinestone. Alright, sweet. Well, that is good. And then if we're going to make this merge, pretty simple. I found the easiest way to make a kind of seamless merge between an avenue and two roads is just to kind of make a really tight pull out this way and then connection immediately like that. It just kind of allows it to connect a little bit easier. So if we do that and then that, okay, so we're going to start getting glitches if we don't bring it out far enough. Let's see if we can get this to... See, that's like okay, but the curve is a bit much. Now, I think Move It lets you mess with curves now. Oh, no way it does. Check this out. Okay. Left click to drag objects around with single select. No way. This is amazing. This is so amazing. I haven't used this yet. This is crazy. This makes... Oh my god. This makes everything so much better. Because, like, this is by far the hardest part of making these merge kind of things. Oh my god, that's amazing. I do kind of... Whoa, I didn't want to do that. Control Z. I do kind of want to get this one... There we go. Oh, that's so good. That's amazing. I didn't even know that was like a feature. Okay, well, there you go. So now you can totally manipulate the angle. That's actually something to new. Well, at the time of recording this, that literally just came out like 2 days ago. And I haven't even used it yet, so pretty sweet. That is going the wrong way. We have this cargo rail over here. It's going to be the rail yard in the future. I think Strick's going to tackle that at some point, as we mentioned in the recap, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in his episode as well. But this will be a rail yard over here, and then what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a passenger line because, again, this whole area is kind of centered around rail, so it made sense to have a passenger line that kind of swoops in here. It's going to eventually connect back over here. I kind of left it at a open-ended because, again, I'm sort of just like giving Strict the full, like, all the tools he needs to start this this big rail yard, and that includes kind of just like leaving open-ended rails. So this is the passenger. It's going to head over here again, have it go this way. It's going to go through the town and then come out on this side and reconnect with this area. Might have one more station in Lone or something, but the main one's definitely going to be in the main town over here. So sweet, looks pretty good. So there's our center point for the town. I'm going to bring over just real quick because I did tell Fresh that I was going to do this. I'm going to bring over one properly angled road. I would assume that this is a 90 degree. It is not. Okay, that is strange. I'm just gonna go off of the road here and totally ignore everything else. But anyway, here is our grid that I told Fresh I would bring him. So this is the main road for that grid. I might even just like leave it like that, honestly, and then just let him mess with it from there. Because again, I would jump into this, but I am like totally out of time at this point. I have no idea how long this episode's going to be. I'm probably just going to like cut a ton of that footage for this interchange, because as I said in the time lapse, it is like, oh man, I spent so much more time on this than I thought I was going to. That seems to be the name of the game with most of these areas at this point, but it's whatever. So anyway, I'm gonna call it for here for now. I will be sending this over to Fresh Popcorn. So if you don't follow Fresh Popcorn on YouTube, you should. I will also, of course, have the link in the description to the whole playlist, so you can jump there. That'll give you access to Strict Toaster's channel, to Fresh Popcorn's channel, to the entire series so far. For those of you who don't know already, I hope you do. It's like episode 10 that this does alternate channels every Friday. So I do not have like 2/3 of the episodes on my channel. So do take a look at that and see what that's all about. Go ahead and check out Fresh Popcorn's channel for the next episode next Friday. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.